Hey guys, this is my Game 9 recap of the World Chess Championship between Ding and Gukesh. So Gukesh has the white pieces and he plays the queen's pawn, d4. And we get the best response from black from Ding, which is knight f6, the Indian defense. We get c4. So this is the most principled way to play against Indian defense. Take the center. We get e6, so we could get a Nimzo if Gukesh goes for knight c3, but he goes for the Catalan opening with g3, so the bishop will go here. And typically, the knight will go to f3. We might get queen c2. If black goes with this check, which Ding does, then white is going to either develop to d2 with the knight or the bishop, generally. If we go here, I think this just pretty much transposes into like a Nimzo. And then obviously white's going to still fiend cat out on the g2 square. So we get bishop d2. This is the main line. And the main idea of giving this check, even though white can block with the bishop like this, is that after the bishop goes back, now we have it where this queen is blocked from this pawn. And there's some lines where that's significant. So we get bishop g2. Also, if you think about it, if black plays bishop here right away, again, like the queen would be defending this line, so maybe even d5 would be able to be pushed right after. Yeah, so let's see here. Is d5 a move? Yeah. So like some of the ideas is to prevent d5. All right, so after the bishop retreats to e7, we get bishop g2. We get d5 fighting back in the center. We get knight f3. We get castles. We get castles from white. c6, so kind of a typical defense from black. You get your light square pawn formation, pawn structure, and then we get a long game. So we get queen c2, knight d7, rook d1, and then Ding plays, how long do you think? Not that long. Ding plays b6. And both are pretty much still in their prep, I believe. After bishop c3, I think Ding didn't really remember what he should go for in this line, as black has many options. Get bishop b7 after a long think from Ding. And then Gukesh is still in his prep, I believe. He plays knight d2 really quickly in 10 seconds. We get queen c7 from Ding. He could have played c5 right away. Then we get, I believe, I'm going to say b3, but I guess we get rook c1 here. We get rook d8. And then instead of like b3, slow playing it, we get b4. Trying to go for an advantage if black doesn't know what they're doing. But Ding correctly plays c5, and all the tactics work out for him where he should be able to get a draw. So we get b takes c5, b takes c5, queen b2, and queen b2 is setting up this battery, I guess. And black again still has many options. Ding goes for knight b6, but this allows bishop a5, pinning the knight because of the queen. And Ding correctly calculates after d takes c4. All the tactics are good for him still. And here he could have just basically traded the pieces and gotten a quick draw, but he didn't realize after takes, wait, not here. Takes, and takes here. He didn't realize black had knight d7. Takes a2. I guess this is a move too because it hits the rook. Huh. Interesting. But Ding didn't go for that. He went for a different approach. Instead, he took the knight with the bishop. And this gives white a slight advantage, as in this position, it's really small just because this pawn is weak, and after this rook moves, or I guess blocking with the bishop or the knight, the bishop won't really be looking at much, and this pawn will never be able to get defended by the bishop. So this bishop's not actually that good anymore. And we get rook a6, a little inaccurate as it allows 95, but it's still fine. But Gukesh goes for queen b5. And then after that, Ding goes for the pawn. And here Gukesh, like in the press conference, thought that he was perhaps in a really good position, as or not right here, he thought he was in a good position, but he didn't realize after rook takes a2 and knight takes b6, he didn't realize he had queen a7 and like rook b8 and like rook a5. He missed that tactical line. So we pretty much get a consolidation of the position and a bunch of trades. Gukesh keeps trying to find winning chances. There was an interesting line right here of queen c6, rook d6, and instead of like giving a check and repeating, you can play as white knight c8, hitting the queen, and after takes, the rook is hanging, so it's got to move. We can go to c7. And then it could easily turn into a draw after knight b5, rook here, and then I think trading the pawn just allows for a quick draw. However, white could try a little bit of tricks with, instead of takes, go knight c3. And this was one way to prolong the game, perhaps, as white. I think kind of preventing a bit of trades for a little bit. But again, it's still going to be a draw. But Gukesh goes for a different line with queen b1. We get rook b5, or rook b8, I mean. We get takes. And white is temporarily up a pawn, but black will be able to tactically get it back by takes, and there will be two attackers on the knight. So black will be able to get the pawn back. And that's what we see in the game after queen b8, takes, and it's almost mate here. However, there's knight e8. And then you could even go for, I believe, a repetition. Like this. So Gukesh just decides to trade queens. Go rook c6 for more trades. We get g5. And we just get Ding now, like basically here, is trying to press a little bit with the black pieces since this bishop's a bit bad. We get h5, get rook a1, rook hits the bishop, bishop moves, Rook hits it again. Bishop goes to d3. Bishop's okay here. However, it'll be able to get hit by the knight in the future. So we'll see in the game. We get knight d7, f4. And all these moves are fine. However, now white's pawns are going to be isolated in a little bit here, which we see in the game. So white has 3 isolated pawns, so it's a bit of a weakness for white to deal with. We get rook c2 by ding, a good try for like an advantage. Get king f3, hitting the pawn. I think another line could have been rook h2, forcing the king go here and going back. And now I think you can play f6, you can play king g6, but it's pretty similar. But anyway, we pretty much get the same kind of line. And in this position, ding could have gone for rook h2 again. After here, there's rook e2. And after king f3, it's not, I mean, king f3, you go rook e1. There's some other moves for white, but say here and here. If white doesn't play h4, say white just keeps waiting, black can play h4. After king g4, there's a check. After takes here, black presses for a bit. If you try to protect the pawn, you can hit it here. Here, I think, go back to g1. Say if it's always drawing, but I thought there was a little bit way to push. Maybe maybe f6 here, d4. Yeah, I mean it's always a draw, but maybe here you win a pawn. c4 takes, and yeah, I looked at this line, but it's still a draw. So yeah. But that was another attempt to kind of just put Gukesh a little on the spot, but it's all drawing. And I think either way it would have been a draw, since they reached time control and had plenty of time with increment as well to hold the position. Let's see. Let me go back so I can get to the actual game. So here, instead of going like rook h2, ding plays f6. We get rook a3, and I think again there was rook h2. Yeah, I think there was a pretty similar line again. We get king f5, we get check, and ding decides to just trade the pieces down with e5 and takes. We get takes. We get takes here. We get check here, and this is a drawn position, as after the rooks are traded, this king will be able to just sit on these 2 squares, as we'll see in the game. Check. White rook just never lets the king pass here, and even if the king got passed, they would just give checks. So Gukesh, or not Gukesh, ding just decides to trade rooks, and this is a drawn endgame, as you can never kick the king out of the corner. So ding gives the pawn, and the game ended in a draw. So that was game 9 of the World Chess Championship. A pretty drawish game. It was probably one of the most drawish games of the match, but that's because both players played with very high accuracy, 99%. So that's game 9. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.